The Julio Jones trade rumors hit a new level. It seems fairly amicable. So what do you think the Falcons could get for him at this point?
The buzz is that they could get a first-round pick, and I think that's asking a little too much, Jim. Second-round pick and maybe a conditional third or, some sort of combination like that seems like a more accurate package for the Falcons to get. I would say, first of all, I don't understand why they would want to do this, given that they doubled down on Matt Ryan by renegotiating his contract and then tripled down on trying to win now by drafting Kyle Pitts. It makes me believe that, and we've seen this really with the thing with Undisputed come out where Julio said, "I'm out of there, man." It does feel like this is not so much Falcons looking for salary cap space as Julio Jones saying, "I'm done here. I want to win. I don't want to be in Atlanta any longer." And because they will get that salary cap relief, they're going to be willing to, make it work for him. I would think that some team, whether it's the Packers, 49ers, Titans, Patriots, certainly Julio has interest there. He and Cam are very close friends. That one of those teams that believes it can win big this year will be willing to take a gamble and throw a second, maybe a third in with it, or a conditional third, one that you got for later in the round. Something like that to get Julio. It does feel like it's going to happen. I would guess that it happens later rather than sooner, but certainly could be wrong if there are enough offers out there.
Will Brinson joining us. All right, Will, so if and when it happens, you, like me, like to keep an eye on what Vegas thinks of things like this. So how much does Julio, for instance, move the needle when it comes to odds? For example, if he goes to a team, how many wins could that be worth in the eyes of the betting markets? What does that look like?
That's a great question, Jim. I would say the two good examples of this would be, I think the best example of this would be the Colts and Titans in the AFC South. So if you look at them, they are basically pretty close to a coin flip in terms of who Vegas thinks will win. Right now, Indianapolis is the favorite. Now, whether or not a 32-year-old wide receiver, albeit one who's been one of the best wide receivers in football and is a future Hall of Famer, if he goes to the Titans, for instance, and by the way, their depth chart behind A.J. Brown is Josh Reynolds and dudes you haven't heard of. If he goes to the Titans, and they could use him, I think that Vegas would flip the Titans to be the favorite. And I think you would see Vegas adjust Atlanta's win total, maybe down a half a game. It's really hard to quantify how much a guy like Julio is worth to a win total. And I think that the average fan would think, he's probably worth 2 or 3 wins. No, I mean, it's not much. Really, these guys, just because of how football works and because of all the the replacement above replacement level, how many games will he play, et cetera, I would guess that it's probably worth. But I think in that case where the divisions are close, San Francisco is another example. If they land Julio, I would expect them to potentially leapfrog the Rams as the favorite in that division. Maybe not so much even because Vegas believes that to be true, but because Julio is such a big name that it could spur betting action on the various sides there. People would want to take San Francisco, and so the books would be looking to even things out there, if that explanation makes sense.
Will Brinson joining us. It does make sense. Well, I could talk to you about Julio and where he might end up for another hour or so, but I just want to jump around to a couple of other quick things. What about the NFC South? What are you expecting to see, for instance, from Sam Darnold in Carolina now that he's away from Adam Gase, the Jets' offensive line, and then everything else that comes along with the Jets? How do you think he'll do there, and do you think that he's definitely an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater?
He is definitely an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater in terms of ceiling. Maybe not an upgrade in terms of floor, but if I'm an NFL team, I want to upgrade my ceiling, and I'm not quite as worried about my floor. And the Panthers, really, Jim, they thought they'd sort of found a value in Teddy Bridgewater, and they were just sick of him by the end of the year. They couldn't run that no-huddle offense. The 2-minute drill was just lethargic, and they were ready to move on. So this worked out for all parties. I think Darnold will be good. I still buy into the fact that this was a top-end prospect, and when you look at what the Jets put around him, I mean, it just wasn't going to work for anyone. If you swap Sam Darnold and Josh Allen, I think you're pretty much swapping. I think Josh Allen's a better, now in hindsight, a better prospect and certainly a better quarterback. But I think it's a lot closer than people would think. So to me, given there's a lot of motivation for this Carolina coaching staff to be right on Sam Darnold, too, especially week one against his old team. I think they'll have things schemed up to make life easier for him. He's got way better weapons than he's ever had. He's got a much better offensive line than he had with the Jets. And as you point out, he doesn't have Adam Gase. The Gase bounce is real. Every NFL player, skill position guy, quarterback, whatever it is, who plays under Adam Gase and stinks and doesn't live up to the hype, immediately bounces back and has success after he leaves, whether it's Ryan Tannehill, Kenyon Drake, Devontae Adams. I mean, the list is lengthy. So I am buying the Sam Darnold bounce back here.
The Gase bounce. Will Brinson joining us. All right, Will, what about the Saints? What is a reasonable expectation for the Saints in their first season without Drew Brees?
The win total is 9.5, and it's juiced to the under, which is sort of makes it a no bet for me, Jim, because I would like to take the under. I think they're a nine wins or less team, but I really don't like betting against Sean Payton. He went 5-0 with Teddy B 2 seasons ago, and he has been more than capable of figuring out how to win football games without his starting quarterback at times. Drew Brees, not peak Drew Brees the last couple of years. It is a pretty big leap of faith to suggest that Jameis Winston will morph into an efficient, non-turnover prone quarterback. That sounds insane. I don't think they'll quite get there, but I anticipate that he'll make life easy for Jameis. Jameis has had a year to study, and I would bet that we see somewhere between 60-40, 70-30 Jameis Taysom Hill. That could end up being Taysom Hill as a starter for all I know. But I'm not ready to buy the Saints just quite yet because of that quarterback situation. If we knew it was going to be stable, if we knew it was going to be efficient, then I would be in on the Saints because people are sort of selling on them. And everything else on that roster looks pretty good.
So you and I are talking gambling. It's actually a blast to do so. On the Pick Six podcast, you've been breaking down each division. Now the free agency and the draft are over, Will. The Rams are the favorites to win the NFC West, according to Vegas. Obviously, that is a nasty, nasty division. How do you like the Rams as the favorites?
I love the Rams this year. But I'm a Matthew Stafford honk, Jim. I mean, to me, Matthew Stafford, if you put him in a different situation, it's sort of like Sam Darnold, right? Or except for longer. People expect him to just drag the Lions, a team that's been mediocre at best for decades. He just dragged them to a bunch of playoff wins, despite people bungling everything around him, and to the point where you're chasing Calvin Johnson into retirement and myriad other problems surrounding that franchise. I think Matthew Stafford is being undervalued, maybe a little bit overvalued now. He's 14-1 to be the MVP, but I think the Rams are going to be great. The only hesitation for me on the Rams and winning that division and maybe going further and winning the Super Bowl is the 49ers, because I think their offseason, bringing back Trent Williams, you add Alex Mack, so that offensive line is well-versed in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And now you don't have, you have Trey Lance, who is maybe starting week one, but I think more likely, sort of a break glass in case of emergency if Jimmy G stinks or gets hurt, and you could put Trey Lance in there. I think he plays, by midseason anyway, but they have this sort of safety net at quarterback that they haven't had the last few years. And if they upgrade, maybe they add Julio Jones, who knows? The only hesitation I have on the Rams is that I find myself just being really drawn to how good the 49ers look.
In fact, really quickly, Will, then what's your thought about that? Is the key to San Francisco's season about making sure somehow that Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy, or is it trying to get Trey Lance ready? What do you think Kyle Shanahan's thinking?
So remember when they traded for Jimmy G mid-season from the Patriots? He sat for 5 games before they brought him in and played. Kyle Shanahan wants to give his quarterbacks time to learn. He doesn't want to throw them out there and have them look bad. And so when Jimmy G could still be traded. Somebody offers him a first, it wouldn't be shocking. But I think they want to keep both guys because it eases the pressure on Trey Lance, and it gives them sort of a very similar situation to the 2017 Chiefs. Hey, Jimmy Garoppolo is Alex Smith. Dude, you've got everything's in front of you, Jimmy. You want to set yourself up to be a highly coveted trade item or potentially even a highly coveted free agent, depending on how this whole thing plays out. Go out and play your tail off, win games, force our hand to keep Trey Lance on the bench, get us out to a great record to start, be executing the offense at a really high level, and it's a win-win for everybody involved. I think that's what they want, but they know that if Jimmy isn't able to do that or can't stay healthy, he can at least get them a quarter of the season in before they have to bring Trey Lance in as the potential backup starter.